Okay, so let's get right into it. We're about to break down a pretty huge moment in the history of cyber warfare. I'm talking about the very first time a cyber attack was confirmed to have shut down a country's power grid. And believe me, this isn't something out of a sci-fi movie. This was real, and it basically wrote the playbook for a new kind of warfare.
I mean, think about that question for a second. How do you turn off an entire country? It sounds totally made up, like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster, right? But the scary part is, in our digital world, the answer is, well, it's very, very real. And it's not some big, dramatic moment with a giant red switch. No, it's way quieter. It's an invisible invasion.
And here's the immediate, real-world consequence. 225,000. That's not just a number. That's 225,000 homes, businesses, people who were suddenly, instantly plunged into total darkness. And let's be super clear. This wasn't a blizzard. It wasn't a faulty transformer. This was planned. It was a deliberate attack with a very, very real human cost.
All right, so let's set the scene. The date is December 23rd, 2015, just 2 days before Christmas. We're in Ukraine. Imagine you're an operator at a power company, just doing your job, and suddenly, you see the cursor on your screen start moving all by itself. It's clicking things, opening circuit breakers, and methodically shutting everything down. You're watching a hostile takeover of your own system right before your eyes, in real time.
And here's what makes this so wild. It wasn't just one facility that got hit. This was a coordinated, synchronized attack on 3 separate power companies. And get this, it all went down within a 30-minute window. That just screams meticulous planning. These guys did their homework. They knew exactly who to target, what to hit, and when to do it for maximum impact. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull this off? Well, to figure that out, a team from the US actually flew over to Ukraine to investigate alongside the power companies. And what they pieced together, it wasn't some smash-and-grab job. It was way more elegant, like a high-tech digital heist. Let's break down exactly how this whole thing went down, step by step.
Okay, so this whole operation actually started months before the lights went out. Step 1. Infiltration. It all began with a simple, sneaky email, a spear phishing email with a poison Microsoft Office attachment sent to a few employees. Someone clicks and boom, the attackers are in. Then comes step 2. Harvesting credentials. They start quietly sniffing around the network, scooping up usernames and passwords. With those stolen keys, they move to step 3, remote access. They use the company's own VPN, the secure system for employees working from home, to just waltz right in. It's like they walked in the front door. Step 4 is when things get real, seizing control. Using that access, they start remotely flipping the circuit breakers. And then finally, the knockout punch. Step 5. They unleash destructive malware to wipe the systems and cover their tracks.
All right, now let's talk about the weapons, because you can't pull off a heist like this without the right tools. The attackers came prepared with a whole digital arsenal. At the core of their operation were 2 main pieces of malware, and each one had a very specific and very destructive job to do.
You can really think of their strategy as a devastating 1-2 punch. The first jab was a piece of malware called Black Energy. This was their infiltrator. Its only job was to get them in the door, probably delivered through those phishing emails we mentioned. It was the skeleton key. But once they had what they wanted, they followed up with the haymaker, Kill Disk. And its name pretty much says it all. This was the destroyer, the digital sledgehammer designed to cause maximum chaos. And what's so important to understand about Kill Disk is that it wasn't there to steal your credit card number or your personal info. Nope. Its one and only purpose was pure destruction. It worked by wiping out essential files and trashing the master boot record, which basically makes a computer completely unbootable. It was all about creating chaos and making it as hard as humanly possible for the utility companies to get the power back on. But wait, it gets worse. They weren't done yet. The attackers also went after the firmware on critical hardware in the substations, basically bricking the devices, turning them into expensive paperweights. And then, for the final, really nasty twist, they remotely scheduled the uninterruptible power supplies, the UPS, which are just backup batteries for the servers, to shut down. They were literally pulling the plug on the backup plan, trying to make recovery a total nightmare. So as investigators looked closer, and as time went on, a really chilling picture started to emerge. This 2015 blackout, it wasn't a one-and-done deal. It was just the opening act. The first shot in what was turning out to be a long, sustained cyber campaign aimed squarely at Ukraine's most critical infrastructure. And the escalation was fast and furious. After that first hit in 2015,
Ukraine's president reported a mind-boggling number: 6,500 cyberattacks against state institutions in just 2 months. And then, almost 1 year to the day after the first blackout, they did it again. This time, a second, even more advanced attack hit the power grid in the capital city, Kyiv.
And here's what the experts on the ground were saying. Alexei Yansky, one of the lead investigators, put it plainly: the attackers were getting better. He said the 2016 attacks were more complex and much better organized. Think about that. The adversary was learning from their actions, refining their techniques, and coming back stronger. They were evolving.
So, the question everyone's asking, who did this? Well, we don't have to guess. The official report from the U.S. government, specifically from CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is pretty blunt. They officially attribute this entire campaign against Ukraine's grid to Russian nation-state cyber actors.
You can bet these attacks were a massive wake-up call, not just for Ukraine, but for grid operators and governments all over the world. It forced everyone to ask some really tough questions. How do you actually defend against an enemy you can't see? An enemy who can just walk right through your digital front door? So let's look at the lessons learned and what the experts recommend. Okay, so the defensive playbook really comes down to building layers of security. First big rule: isolate your most critical networks. Keep them completely separate from the internet. If the bad guys can't get to it online, they can't hack it. Simple as that. Second, you have to lock down any kind of remote access. Control it, monitor it, and for goodness sake, use multi-factor authentication. Third is a cool concept called application whitelisting. Basically, instead of trying to block all the bad software, you just make a list of the only software that's allowed to run. Anything else, like kill disk, gets blocked automatically. And finally, you have to have a backup plan to go old school, to be ready to run the grid manually if all the digital controls go down.
And that really brings us to the final, lingering question. We saw a clear evolution, right? The attackers got better, more sophisticated from 2015 to 2016. Which makes you wonder, were these attacks on Ukraine just about causing local damage? Or were they something more? Maybe a trial run, a proof of concept for a new kind of war, a way to test out weapons and tactics that could, one day, be used on a much, much bigger stage. And that's a pretty sobering thought when you think about just how much we all rely on these systems every single day.